You think you know your war buddies? Think again. 3 days after Sergeant Cross went down in the ash, Marcus found her helmet. Scorch marks, dented, totally wrecked. But tucked inside? A folded letter. No name, no rank, just one line. To whoever finds this. Marcus didn't just find a letter, he found a secret. Turns out, Elena Cross was a ghost. Her real name was Sophia Langley, old money, political scandal, the kind of truth you run a million miles from. She wasn't fighting for medals, she was fighting for penance. Every crazy rescue, every disobeyed order, that was her paying a debt. This isn't about how she died. It's about the truth she lived to keep hidden. And now, Marcus is holding the key. You ready to read it? Because it changes everything. They found her helmet 3 days after the firefight ended. Scorched, dented, and half buried in ash, it was the only thing left of Sergeant Elena Cross. But inside, tucked beneath the padded liner, was a folded letter, sealed with a fingerprint smudge and time-worn edges. No name, no rank, just one line. To whoever finds this. What they read inside would change everything they thought they knew. This story isn't about how she died, it's about why she lived the way she did and the truth she fought to keep hidden until the very end. The wind had died by the time they reached the ridge. Ash still hung in the air, clinging to the earth like fog. They walked slowly, boots pressing down into the soft, blackened soil. Marcus Hale stopped first. He recognized the spot immediately. Twisted steel, a scorched patch of earth, and an empty shell casing that still steamed when you touched it. "This is where she went down," he said, kneeling. No one spoke. The silence was too heavy. The cleanup crew moved on ahead, dragging wreckage and collecting what gear they could salvage. Marcus stayed behind, scanning the debris until his eyes caught a glint of dull green beneath a sheet of charred fabric. He pulled it out. A helmet, scuffed and burned, but still intact. He turned it over in his hands. The inside padding was soaked with dried blood and dust. Then he saw something folded, tucked just beneath the liner. Carefully, he slid it out. A piece of paper, creased and brittle, sealed with a single strip of tape. He stared at it for a moment. "To whoever finds this," it read. His throat tightened. "Hey, Marcus," called Ramirez from a few feet away. "You find something?" He didn't answer right away. His fingers ran over the handwriting again. "Yeah," he finally said. "Her helmet." That night, back at the temporary base, Marcus sat alone under a low-hanging tarp, while rain pattered on the canvas above. The letter lay on the table in front of him, untouched since the moment he found it. He hadn't told anyone else what it said. Not yet. He lit a cigarette and stared out into the darkness. He didn't even know she had written anything like that. Elena Cross wasn't the kind of person to talk much. She led when others hesitated. She fought when others fell back. But she never opened up about her past, not even to the ones who had fought beside her for over a year. He remembered her laughing once, over coffee in a ruined building, saying she'd joined up because it was quieter out here than back home. No one really believed her, but no one asked again. Now he was holding her truth, and he didn't know if he was ready to read it. In the days after her death, something had shifted in the squad. The usual banter had quieted. Meals were shorter. No one played music anymore. They weren't just mourning a comrade. They were mourning the anchor that had held them together through the worst of the war. Elena had been more than just a sergeant. She had been the one who ran back into gunfire for a wounded rookie, the one who shared her rations when supply lines broke, the one who whispered words of calm into a young soldier's ear during their first firefight. And now, she was gone. Marcus lit another cigarette with shaking fingers. He unfolded the letter. He didn't read it yet. Instead, he held it, just for a moment, like maybe she'd walk through the flap of the tent and tell him it was some joke. But she didn't. The helmet sat beside him, silent. He finally closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would read it. And maybe, just maybe, he'd understand who she really was. Elena Cross was many things to the squad: leader, protector, friend. But what she never was easy to read. To most, she was the kind of soldier you could count on when the bullets started flying. She moved with purpose, always calm under fire, but there was a distance about her, like she carried something too heavy to share. Marcus remembered the first time he met her. It was during boot camp, before they were assigned to the same unit. She was quiet, focused, never one to waste words. But when the instructors pushed them hard, Elena was the first to step forward, rallying the group with a steady voice that never wavered. She wasn't loud or flashy, but you knew she'd be the one to have your back when it mattered. Her squad mates often talked about how she risked everything to save others, sometimes against orders. Ramirez recalled a night mission months ago, when Elena defied the command to pull back and instead led a small team to evacuate a group of civilians trapped in a bombed-out building. The mission was dangerous and unofficial, but Elena said it was the right thing to do. Those civilians lived because she wouldn't turn away. Even in the harshest conditions, she showed kindness. She shared the little food she had, fixed radios when no one else could, and always made time to listen, even if what you said didn't seem important. The soldiers joked she had a sixth sense for when someone was hurting beneath the surface. It was part of what made her the heart of the squad, but no one really knew where she came from. Elena never talked about her family or life before the military. Whenever someone tried to ask, she'd just change the subject or give a short answer that ended the conversation. Some thought she had secrets she wanted to keep buried. Marcus remembered one afternoon in camp when they found her quietly burning a photo behind the tents. The flames swallowed the edges before she crushed the ashes beneath her boot. He never saw the picture, but later he found a glimpse of a name faintly written on the back. Sophia. No one asked about it after that. Even her closest friends never caught more than a glimpse of who she really was. Elena carried a weight, but she never let it show. It was as if the battlefield was the only place she felt she could be herself. At night, the squad would talk around the fire, sharing stories of lost friends and past battles. Elena's stories were always about the people she saved or protected, never about herself. She spoke of missions and duty, never of dreams or fears. That silence made her all the more mysterious. And now, after she was gone, Marcus wondered what else she had been hiding. The letter in her helmet was a key, but it wasn't just about revealing her past. It was about understanding the person they thought they knew, the soldier who gave everything and never asked for anything in return. She was more than a sergeant. She was someone who lived with pain, hope, and a secret no one expected. And soon, that secret would change everything. Marcus stared at the letter in his hands, the paper fragile and worn from time and battle. The ink was faded, but the handwriting was clear, careful, deliberate. He took a deep breath and began to read aloud, his voice steady despite the weight of the words. "To whoever finds this," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then I am no longer here to explain in person. There are truths I have carried alone for too long, truths that may change how you see me. My name is not Elena Cross. It never was." Marcus paused. The room around him silent except for the soft patter of rain against the tent. He looked up, surprised by the raw honesty already spilling from the letter. "My real name is Sophia Langley." The letter continued. "I was born into a life of privilege, in a family whose name carries weight far beyond what I ever wanted. Politics, power, corruption. It was all part of my world, a world I ran from. I took the name Elena Cross when I enlisted, hoping to disappear into the ranks, to serve as one of many and not as a Langley." The letter trembled slightly in Marcus's hands, as if the words themselves were heavy to carry. He could almost hear her voice, steady and quiet, telling the story she had never shared. "I didn't join the army for glory or honor or the medals they hand out. I joined because I needed to atone. Before I left home, my family was caught in a scandal, a cover-up involving innocent lives lost to protect their interests. I tried to speak out, but no one listened. They silenced me, threatened me. So I ran." Sophia's words painted a picture of a young woman torn between duty and guilt, caught in a world she could never fully escape. "I left behind my old life, my name, even the people I loved. I wanted to believe that out here, with a rifle in my hands and the weight of a uniform on my back, I could find a way to make things right. But the war didn't let me forget. the letter grew more personal, more raw. There was a mission early on that changed everything. We were ordered to secure a village suspected of harboring insurgents. I led the assault, convinced we were doing the right thing. But civilians died, families torn apart. I carried that guilt with me every day since. That day, I vowed to protect anyone I could, even if it meant breaking orders, even if it meant risking my own life. Marcus swallowed hard. He had never imagined the woman he fought beside had such a painful past. The letter's final lines were filled with quiet resolve. If you are reading this, please know I never wanted pity or recognition. I fought because I believed in something greater than myself. If my story helps you understand that there is more to the people you fight beside than you realize, then I am grateful. I hope that in some way this letter will bring peace both to you and to me. Marcus folded the letter carefully, his hands shaking slightly. The truth about Elena Cross, about Sophia Langley, was more than a revelation. It was a burden shared now, a legacy of courage wrapped in silence. He looked up, the faces of his comrades around the campfire etched in the dim light. They had lost a friend, a leader, and now, a secret. But maybe, through this letter, they could finally understand who she really was. The letter was just the beginning of the story, the part Sophia had chosen to share before she died. But Marcus knew there was more, a deeper truth behind the words, one tangled in the shadows of her past and the burdens she carried alone. Sophia had mentioned a scandal involving her family, a powerful political dynasty, known for influence and control far beyond the public eye. Marcus learned from old news reports and whispers among the ranks that the Langley name was linked to a government cover-up, a brutal incident where innocent civilians were sacrificed to protect a secret agenda. Sophia had tried to expose the truth but was quickly silenced by threats and isolation. She had walked away from everything she knew, hoping the army would be her escape, but the war didn't let her go so easily. In one mission, before Marcus joined the squad, Sophia's unit had been sent to secure a village rumored to harbor insurgents. The operation turned into a nightmare. Intelligence was flawed, and in the chaos, a strike meant to eliminate threats ended with civilian deaths. Families were destroyed, children lost, and Sophia carried the weight of those lives on her conscience. Her letter confessed that moment had broken something inside her. The confident soldier who once believed in orders and loyalty was replaced by someone who put humanity above protocol. She began disobeying direct commands, rescuing civilians whenever she could, even if it meant risking court-martial. Marcus remembered the stories from the squad, how Elena had run back into a firefight to drag a wounded mother and child to safety, ignoring the shouts to retreat. How she had stayed behind to hold a line so others could escape, even when it was clear the mission was lost. It wasn't reckless bravery, it was penance. A desperate attempt to save others in place of the lives she felt responsible for. The letter hinted at another secret. Sophia had an estranged sister, someone she had left behind when she disappeared. Their relationship was fractured by the family's politics, but Sophia's final words spoke of hope, for reconciliation, for healing beyond the war. As Marcus pieced together the fragments, he realized Sophia had been fighting two battles, one on the front lines and one within herself. Her identity as Elena Cross was more than a name. It was a shield against a past that threatened to destroy her, but that shield came at a cost. She had traded her family and her name for a chance to do what she believed was right, even when the world around her seemed broken. Now Marcus held the full weight of her secret, a story of guilt, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of redemption. And as he looked at the worn helmet on the table, he understood why she never wanted anyone to know. Some truths are harder to carry than a rifle in the heat of battle, but now they had to carry it for her. The day Elena died was like many others, but it would be etched in the memories of her squad forever. The mission was clear: secure the perimeter, gather intelligence, and hold the line until reinforcements arrived. What no one expected was the ambush waiting for them. The sun had barely risen when the first shots rang out. The enemy had been waiting, hidden among the ruins and twisted metal. Chaos erupted instantly. Bullets tore through the air, and orders shouted over the crackle of radios were drowned by the roar of gunfire. Elena took command without hesitation. She moved forward, her eyes sharp, voice steady as she directed her team through the maelstrom. Marcus recalled how she always led from the front, the first to face danger so her squad mates could find cover. That day was no different. The enemy was relentless. The squad was pinned down, and casualties mounted quickly. A young recruit named Jensen was hit, lying exposed in the open with no way to reach him. Elena didn't hesitate. She sprinted across the battlefield, dodging bullets, her every step a gamble with death. She reached Jensen and pulled him to safety, shielding him with her own body as she called for medics. The others saw it all, her courage, her refusal to abandon one of their own. But the battle was far from over. As the squad began to withdraw, Elena stayed behind to cover their retreat. She held her position against overwhelming odds, firing relentlessly, buying precious seconds for her comrades to escape. It was during this stand that a sniper's bullet found her. The shot was fatal, but Elena didn't fall immediately. She stayed on her feet long enough to drag a wounded recruit to cover, whispering words of reassurance before she finally collapsed. Her last act was one of sacrifice, putting others before herself, even as death closed in. Marcus remembered the silence that fell over the squad when they learned what had happened. The battlefield had claimed many lives, but Elena's loss was different. She wasn't just a soldier who died in combat. She was their shield, their heart, their reason for fighting on. No one knew then about the letter, or the secrets it held. They only knew the woman who had saved them all. Her courage in those final moments was the purest testament to who she was. She died as she had lived, bravely, selflessly, and true to herself. The memory of that day would stay with Marcus forever, a reminder of the cost of war and the price of loyalty. And as the smoke cleared, the helmet was left behind, silent witness to the sacrifice of a soldier who had given everything. After Marcus finished reading the letter, the squad gathered in quiet contemplation. The weight of Sophia's truth settled over them like a heavy fog. They knew they had to tell her family, to let them know who she really was beneath the uniform and the name she'd chosen. Marcus found himself sitting across from an old government contact, someone who had connections deep within the political circles. The conversation was cautious, filled with silence and careful words. When the news finally reached Sophia's family, the reaction was mixed: shock, disbelief, and then grief that ran deeper than anyone had expected. Her family struggled to reconcile the woman they thought they knew with the soldier who had vanished into the chaos of war. The letters and stories Marcus shared brought pieces of Sophia back to life, and slowly, the walls of silence began to crumble. Meanwhile, the letter itself found its way beyond the small military base. An anonymous source leaked it online, and it spread quickly, touching thousands who read about the soldier who had hidden her identity to fight for something bigger than herself. The story ignited conversations about sacrifice, identity, and the price people pay for the truth. Messages poured in from strangers moved by Sophia's courage, her willingness to carry a burden most could never imagine. In forums and comment threads, people debated the complexities of war and the hidden lives of those who serve. The letter became more than just a confession. It became a symbol of those who fight in the shadows, those whose stories remain untold. It sparked a movement calling for greater understanding and support for soldiers who carry invisible wounds. Within the squad, the letter brought healing. Old wounds reopened, but they shared their grief and found strength in one another. The memory of Sophia became a guiding light, a reminder that the truth could bind them even in the darkest times. For Marcus, the letter was a call to action. He began working with advocacy groups, sharing Sophia's story, and pushing for reforms that would honor the sacrifices of soldiers who bore burdens beyond the battlefield. The helmet, once a silent relic, now stood as a testament to a life lived in quiet courage and profound sacrifice. Her truth, once hidden, was finally spoken aloud, and it changed everything. Months passed since the letter's revelation, but its impact only grew stronger. The squad, once fractured by grief and unanswered questions, had found a new sense of purpose. They honored Elena, Sophia, the woman who had sacrificed everything not just in battle, but in the fight to protect her own truth. Marcus often thought about the weight she carried, the burden of a secret that could have destroyed her if it had ever come to light. Yet, she chose to live with it quietly, focusing instead on those around her. Her courage wasn't just in the firefight or the risks she took, it was in the honesty she left behind. The helmet, now carefully preserved, had become more than a piece of gear. It was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that the stories we carry beneath the surface matter just as much as the battles we fight in the open. Her family, once distant and broken, began to heal too. They held private memorials and spoke openly about Sophia, sharing her story with others who had never known the real person behind the name. They pledged to continue her legacy, advocating for truth and accountability in places where silence had once ruled. In quiet moments, Marcus would return to the letter. It was a bridge between who she was and who she had become. It taught him that identity isn't just what's on a name tag or a dog tag. It's the sum of every choice made in the face of fear and hope. Elena Cross was gone, but Sophia Langley's story lived on. A story of courage born from pain, of a soldier who chose to fight not just for her country, but for the truth she held close to her heart. And in that truth, they all found a way to move forward. Her helmet rests now on a shelf in the squad's barracks, a quiet tribute to the woman who wore it with silent strength. It reminds them daily that sometimes the most powerful battles are fought within, and the greatest victories come from facing those battles honestly. She was more than the soldier they knew. She was the sister, the fighter, the woman who refused to be defined by the past she ran from. And through the letters she left behind, she finally revealed who she really was. The days that followed the discovery of the letter brought a strange sense of closure to the squad. The mystery of who Elena truly was had been unveiled. Yet with it came a deeper respect for the sacrifices she made, not just on the battlefield, but in her own life. Marcus found himself reflecting on the many moments they had shared, now seen in a new light. In quiet conversations, the squad mates began to share their memories. Stories of a woman who carried her burdens alone, but never let them affect her commitment to them. They spoke of her laughter in the darkest hours, the way she stood as a pillar of strength, and the rare glimpses of vulnerability she allowed only to those closest to her. The letter, once a fragile piece of paper, had become a beacon, a testament to the complexities hidden beneath the surface of every soldier's uniform. It reminded them all that behind every name is a story waiting to be told, often filled with pain, hope, and courage in equal measure. For Marcus, the journey was personal. He realized that knowing Elena's truth didn't lessen the loss. It deepened it, but also made her memory more real and vivid. She was no longer just a sergeant or a comrade. She was Sophia, a woman who had faced impossible choices and made sacrifices few could understand. The squad held a small ceremony, honoring her not just for the soldier she was, but for the person she had been in private. They shared her story with new recruits, teaching them about the strength found in honesty and the courage it takes to carry hidden burdens. Her helmet, once a silent relic of war, now symbolized resilience, sacrifice, and the power of truth. It served as a reminder that even when someone hides behind a mask, their real story can inspire and teach those left behind. As the sun set on the base that evening, Marcus looked out across the horizon, feeling a quiet peace. Elena's story, carried in a letter found in her helmet, had revealed who she really was. Someone who fought not just for survival, but for redemption and hope. And in that revelation, they all found a way to carry on.